Evening, Councillor Butlin. Could you turn your camera and microphone off, please, for the moment, until you, unless you want to speak. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Good evening, everybody. We're going to open the meeting now. And before we open the meeting, I'll ask any members or officers in physical attendance with electronic device to mute it to avoid feedback, please. So any remote participants to keep their cameras and microphones off unless they wish to speak, as this can affect the quality of the meeting. And the meeting is being live webcast and the recording stays on the council's website. Welcome to the Western Area Committee, Thursday the 8th of June 2023. It's a hybrid meeting, including, and I'm going to include the welcome to visiting members and members of the public attending remotely. Also in attendance from Swale Borough Council is the Head of Housing and Community Services, Charlotte Hudson, Policy Engagement Officer, Janet Dart, and the Active Control Coordinator, Adrian Oliver. Okay, I'd like to remind you that to raise your hand, if you want to ask questions, is to raise your hand if you wish to speak, and I'll invite you to speak in turn. Could you please state your name and the organisation that you represent? Likewise, anyone attending remotely, please mute their microphone until they speak and indicate on the instant messenger if they wish to speak. Any member of the public that uses the instant messenger inappropriately may be removed from the meeting. I hope that doesn't happen. So, agenda item 1 is the emergency evacuation procedure. Please be aware of the evacuation procedures to follow in the event of an emergency. There is no scheduled test of the fire alarm during this meeting. If the fire alarm does sound, please leave the building quickly without collecting any of your possessions using the doors signed as fire escapes, and assemble in the car park at the side of the building. Await instructions before re-entering the building. Should anyone require assistance in evacuating the building, please make the Swale Borough officers aware of any special needs that the suitable arrangements may be made in the event of an emergency. Okay, we had none. That's great. Thank you. And agenda item 2, apologies for absence, please.
We have apologies from Councillor James Hunt.
Thank you. Agenda item 3, declarations of interest. That's great, thank you. Agenda item 4, the minutes of previous meeting. I will ask members to agree the minutes of the meetings held on the 16th of February 2023, minute numbers 658 to 666. And on the 17th of May 2023, minute numbers 43 and 44 to 44. Agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Someone's got it. Thank you.
Agreed.
We got there eventually. Okay, as this is our first meeting with some new councillors now, I would like to go around the room and just invite councillors to introduce themselves, please. So,
Okay, I'm Councillor Sarah Stephen, Woodstock Ward.
Councillor Monique Bonney, West Downs. Had to think about that.
Mike, do you want to go next?
Councillor Mike Baldock, Borden Grove.
Councillor Richard Palmer, Hartlett, Newington and Upchurch Ward.
Councillor Chris Palmer, Hartlett, Newington and Upchurch Ward.
Councillor Anne Kavanagh, Borden and Grove Park Ward.
Thank you. Do we have any parish councillors here tonight? Would you like to introduce yourselves, please?
Steve Tolhurst, Highway Parish Council.
Well, can you use your microphone?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, the big one.
Hello, Steve Tolhurst, Highway Parish Council.
That's it. Is it off? Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
And Gareth Randall, I'm actually an old councillor because I was actually a councillor on Swale before Mike Baldock actually. So I'm currently, I did come on behalf of Bobbing Parish Council. Now that our Angela's here, she can be our rep and I will be an ordinary member of the public. So thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, Councillor Marchington, I'm Quinlan Halfway Ward, so I'm here on Quinlan Town Council. We're just showing interest because we've got shared boundaries and therefore shared interest in linking.
Good. Any more parish councillors?
Angela Gladwin, Bobbing Parish Council.
Just switch it off again, please. It's just that we get an echo. That's all right, don't worry. Okay, thank you very much. And I'm Councillor Paul Stephen of Woodstock Ward also. Thank you.
I just should declare I'm a parish councillor at Robinson Parish Council as well. I should make that the declaration.
I should think so as well.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, here we go.
As well as Parish Council at Borden and Bobbing.
And I'll make the same declaration that was Hartlett, Newington and Upchurch. Sorry, Newington Parish Council.
And I'm also Councillor on Parish, Newington Parish Council.
Also a councillor at Bobbing Parish Council.
Thank you very much. I'm sure you've done that on purpose. This is my first meeting here. Right, moving swiftly on to agenda item number 6, the walking and cycling project update. And I'd like to ask the active travel coordinator, Adrian Oliver, to present this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Bear with me whilst I work out the technology. Sorry.
Good.
Great pictures. Yeah. Here we go. Good evening, everybody. Adrian Oliver, active travel coordinator, not a parish councillor anywhere.
Yes.
Is that a threat? I thought I'd come here this evening just to show you some pictures on the back of the report that is in the pack. So we've been working on these Swale trails for a while now. We are on the cusp of being able to publish these. So just to run through where we are, we have 4 walks and 2 rides. The first walk is Apples Galore, which is Newington and Hartlett. It's a 4-mile walk. We have Birds, Boats and Countryside Trail, which is a bit longer at 5.5 miles, and it's Newington, Upchurch, Lower Halstow. Did I say something? Oh, I see. Sorry, guys, I'll wait. I'll go back.
Is that any better for you? No?
We need the other one up.
Better, yeah.
Slightly better, yeah. Oh, that's even better.
There you go. Suits
Can
great.
you stand there all evening? We didn't have to safety check that.
Thank you very much for the blinds of sorts. Yes, so the first walk is Apples Galore, which is Newington and Hartlip, 4 mile walk, about 90 minutes walking. The second one is Birds, Boats and Countryside Trail. It's a 5.5 mile walk from Newington to Upchurch and Lower Houselow. King and Country, which starts at King George V Field and then runs through, walks through Tunstall and Borden, again about 4.5 miles. The Woodland and Duck Ponds Trail, which again starts in Sittingbourne and goes through Robinson Green, has a loop over to the Red Lion at Milstead, and then Cromer's Wood, and then back into Sittingbourne. Have 2 rides. We have Estuary Edgeland Explore. Sorry, I like alliteration. Apologies for that. That's Newington over to Upchurch. No, sorry, the other way around. Newington over to Iwade, then Lowestoft, Housestow, in Upchurch, and then back into Newington. Last ride is Ride in the Shadow of the Downs, which is a bit of a hilly ride, but starting in Robinson Green and heading to Milstead, Bredgar, then up Deans Hill, and yeah, sorry, up Deans Hill into and down into Borden. You could, well, yes, down into Old Street and then Borden and then Tunstall and then back into Robinson Green. These are all circular routes. You can start wherever you like and you can go whichever direction you want to go. You can go clockwise or anti-clockwise. They're completely, we've just given you the route. People can just choose which way they want to do it and where they want to start. So these are the new maps that we've had to go out and commission because Explore Kent couldn't actually do our maps in the end. So we've had to go out and commission these maps, but they look nice and they do exactly what we wanted them to do, have all the detail we wanted on them. Sorry, yes.
Seriously, how much should that cost? I mean, to do a map like that, I could have done it. That's because I like using maps actually, and I could have done it. But seriously, I mean, a lot of this, commissioning stuff out, I just really get concerned that we add to the costs when we must, you know, we could look at a cheaper way of doing it because, yeah, I mean, I no offence, I mean, I've said this before, I put a couple of similar walks together and was told, oh, but you can't do it because we've got all sorts of insurance risks. And I know you've done a really good job, but I'm thinking, look at going forward, we want to add to this. And I just think that we need to look at a way we can add to it without costing us a load of money.
Absolutely, and you're absolutely right. We want to keep adding to this. We want to create a portfolio of walks and rides around the borough, and the maps actually cost us £100 each. So it wasn't eye-watering, thank goodness. And we use. I'll send them to you next time. But yeah, so yes, we had these walks mapped, and yes, unfortunately, we did have to go outside, but we got what we wanted. So moving on, we are producing leaflets, map leaflets. So and this is the first one I've seen from the comms team, came in this afternoon. So this is Apples Galore. It's an A5 leaflet. The reason it's A5 is because we can do that in-house. Don't want to spend the money. A5. Yeah. Well, big pockets. Cargo trouser pocket. Ideally, we wanted 1/3 A4, but that's a complicated folding process for our team in the print room. Oh, sorry, for Joe in the print room. So we've gone A5 to make it easier for her. So this is the cover. And this is the first reveal, so it's opened up to A4 size. And then this is the second reveal, which is opened up to A3 with the step-by-step guide and the map there. I'm gonna tweak these a bit. I say this is the first time I saw them this afternoon, and not quite what I wanted, but we'll work on it and get it right. The map needs to be bigger. And the back cover. Now, we will obviously put this on Visit Swale. They'll be on Explore Kent, and you can follow the routes on Kent Connected. And that's locally, regionally, and then nationally, they'll be on the Go Jauntly app, which is a walking photo app. And that'll be going live for the summer holidays. Go Jauntly. And then finally, as part of this exercise, we've created a portfolio of about 300 images of the Western area. So we now have photos, which we didn't have really before. We had half a dozen not very good photos. Now we have 300 top quality ones that we can now use whenever you want to use. And that's it. Any questions? Yes.
Bonnie.
Thank you. I thought I'd wait.
Thank you.
I'm learning. Okay, a couple of things. So where are we on cost? Because obviously there was a budget there and there was a discussion about £100 per map. But do you know roughly what we've spent on this project?
Yeah, we've spent 10,000.
Okay, right, that's grand. Couple of things. So I'll let someone else comment on that. Because I read the report and I'm like, leaflets are available. And I'm like, I haven't seen them yet. I know I've got accommodation. I should declare that I've got accommodation. So they haven't come out yet and we're still in the, okay. So in the formatting, because I take it's our comms team who are doing the design. There'll obviously be different formats of design for whether it's digital or print. Good.
The digital will be all on Explore Kent, so we'll get the digital from that end.
Yeah. And will we put it on our own website, do we think?
Yes.
We will. Okay, that's cool.
But we'll put it on Visit Swale.
Yeah, yes, that's what I was going to ask. So as an accommodation provider, I'll speak with that hat and I'll make that declaration, is quite often what they have is visitor books, which are A4 size. So I use like a laminated book and we put in there all the walks around Faversham. So the ones that are already, is it the Pilgrims one and the other walks, which are, I think they're formatted into A4 size that you can, or you're able to print them out in A4 size. So I suppose is on our website, could we have them so that they're formatted to an A4 size that are easy to print out and put in a visitor book? Or that someone at home could print it out themselves. So it's, whilst it's formatted for the website for people to look at on their phone, they can equally print it out, because what I find is visitors actually want to take a copy with them so they can read the information on the way around, and we'll only have a finite resource print, you know, to be able to print so many leaflets. But if we can perpetually allow people to print them, download them.
Yeah, the work with Explore Kent means that they will not only produce them digitally,
Yeah,
but they will be downloadable as PDFs at A4 size.
cool. Because we quite often laminate them, and I think a few of the others do. Okay, that's grand. And will they be distributed to like it says local hospitals, so that's pubs and shops as well as the hotels
We'll make them available to anybody who wants to distribute them and
and the parish council?
the parish councils. And if anybody wants to distribute them themselves, just tell me how many they want
Yeah.
and I will happily supply them.
It's probably quite a nice thing to actually put on the parish notice boards.
Yeah.
If it covers that area.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you.
No.
And thank you for your work. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Councillor Baldock, please.
Excellent. Are we going to do a press release? I think this is the sort of thing we should do. Excellent.
Yes.
And yeah, I just think we really want to work with the parishes to get these out to some of the parishes, because there's a lot of visitor attractions in the rural areas that we need to be homing in on. So I think this is really good, actually.
Everybody that we've had working on this project has gone or volunteered on the project, even has come round and gone, these are great, didn't know this was here. So it's been a great thing. I'd like to do a launch, and I'd be guided by you as to where and when we could do that.
I think Borden, do a bit of the Borden walk, actually.
Oh, I'm starting a fight now, haven't I? Well, I was actually thinking 35 High Street. 34 High Street.
it's not in our area.
But it is the VIC for the area.
Yeah.
Well, from Weston.
No, it's the whole town.
Yeah, this is Weston's project. Weston's project. This is Weston's project. It should be in the Western area of a Western walk.
I do feel it should be somewhere neutral, because there's quite a few walls in the Western area. So where are we going to pick? To be
I'll
safe.
go first.
Yeah.
I don't really mind, but I just think it should be the Western.
Well, if we can find an appropriate venue, that's not going to cost us, not going to cost us a fortune, then yes, we'd be.
Councillor Stephen, Sarah Stephen.
I sort of followed on for that because I was going to mention 34 High Street and the information hub, and it does have a lot of maps for Faversham and everything, so that would be important. If you do the launch, you could invite the mayor as well. Bicycle. On my bicycle.
Councillor Gareth Randall.
Thank you. Could I ask the council to consider releasing these rather nice photos under a Creative Commons license, which means that anyone can use them as long as they credit the source. That would include things like tourism groups, community groups, attractions themselves, which means they'll sort of be available for out there forever.
I will investigate. I will have to ask permission of the photographer.
Baldock.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to this. I mean, we have done this as the Western area. There is a Swale-wide project as well. It would make sense for the Swale-wide project to be done from behind 34 High Street. But I really think, we've done this as an area committee. We've done this on top of what the rest of the borough is doing. It should be about promoting, it's about promoting our part of the borough. So any promotion or launch of this part of the work should be within this area. And I don't particularly mind which part of the Western area it is, but I do think it should be somewhere rural that captures the nature of the whole, of the majority of the Western area. And I don't think Sittingbourne High Street does that.
I'm open to suggestions. Happy to organise anything around whatever venue you would like to choose.
If we look at some of the walks or the rides and find one that's more picturesque, more suitable for groups to congregate and maybe do part of the walk at the same time. And so it doesn't want to be a long one with many hills, but easy accessible. I mean, I think that's probably the best idea. I mean, but I think we need to look at them very closely to find out what would be more suitable for, you know, a crowd of people.
Being very familiar with all the sites and the walks, I would have thought your equal option is either Borden to Tunstall, or you'd be looking at the other one. The others are further apart with less obvious attraction. So you'd be looking then maybe Lower Halstow to Upchurch, but that was the cycle route. I don't think we'd want to walk those two. But I think Borden to Tunstall, you've got an obvious starting place, an obvious stopping place where people can gather. So, and if you want to do something in Newington area, it's harder to link the bits of the track, you know, short and easy walk.
Adrian, would you make some suggestions on suitable locations for that?
I will indeed.
Yeah,
I will indeed. Actually, was just thinking perhaps Robertson Green would be the place to launch.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, where are you going to walk to?
Well,
Yeah.
you could walk to Robertson from Robertson Green to Robertson, or Robertson to Highstead. But I was actually thinking following weekend at the end of Great Big Green Week to lead one of these walks. So if anybody wants to, I will let you know. We'll do that.
thank you.
Can I quickly just say thank you, Adrian, because I instigated this right at the beginning of area committee, and thank you so much for all the hard work.
Councillor? Yes.
They're all very good, but can I point out, is that a small typo where it's got the club at Rodmersham?
I can't see it.
It says the club at Robertson. Is that not the title of it?
No. Because it's Squash Club or the Cricket Club.
No,
It's
yeah, got it.
Well done.
Good spot. That's probably my typing. Apologies.
We proofread these.
They will. They will. As I said, this is the first time I read them, so I haven't read them yet. So yeah, they will be proofed.
As we know the areas really well, can we have could you copy us in with our bit of local knowledge, and we can, is that okay?
We have already done that.
Not really looking for too many amends, but
No. But, you know, anything that's obvious.
please don't drag this on.
No.
I'm happy to for anybody to proofread. So yes, but not too many. Friends.
Okay, thank you. As there's no more questions on this one, and thank you very much, Adrian. And we'll move on to agenda item number 7, achievement awards. And I'd like to ask Janet Dart to present the report, please.
So the report you'll find in the agenda pack is going to be presented at the full council meeting on the 21st of June, as it's a requirement of the area committee's terms of reference. As we have a host of new councillors after the elections in May, we're also presenting the report to all 4 area committees, as it will help to give a bit of background about the committees and how they have evolved since their inaugural meetings in September 2020. As the report explains, one of the objectives of the administration formed in 2019 was to diffuse power among members and to improve public engagement in decision making. area committees were set up to help achieve this objective. In addition to the ward committee members for the area, parish councillors, members of the public and representatives of local organisations are invited and encouraged to take part in the meetings. The meetings provide people in the community with an opportunity to speak direct to their local councillors and raise issues that are a concern in the area. The report sets out some examples of issues that have either been resolved or brought to the attention of the partner organisation responsible. They're also a useful way to provide updates on projects coming up in the area and to consult with the community. The first year of area committees took place in the pandemic when it was not possible to meet face to face, but the ability to attend meetings remotely proved very popular. When it was possible to start meeting face to face, a lot of people were keen to continue attending the meetings remotely. So it was decided to trial hybrid meetings, and the OWL was therefore purchased, and providing there's reliable Wi-Fi at the external venues, meetings can now be attended either in person or remotely. For the first 3 years, area committees were allocated funding. They each set work plans which were used to develop priorities and criteria for awarding funds to projects and activities. The report sets out in detail how the funds were operated and lists how a total of £534,000 worth of funding was allocated across the 4 area committees over the 3 years to a wide variety of projects overseen both by external organisations and internally led by Swale Borough Council. As part of the budget setting process for 2023, members had to consider how to deal with the budget gap, which unfortunately resulted in funds not being available to allocate to the 4 area committees this year. The item on the agenda, the next item on the agenda will look at how area committees can still set priorities but without funding. I wondered whether the chair or Charlotte have anything they wanted to add. No. So I don't know if anybody has any comments or questions.
Glad to see you're all happy with that. Hold on, Councillor Bonny.
So I've had it pointed out to me under 3.5, the Eastern Area Committee. So I know it's not this one, but it's tackle flooding in, it says the Fawsham area. I think it was Fawsham Rec specifically. I want to mention that. And that also Swale was looking into actually undertaking some work to ensure that the water didn't flood off the wreck and into the drains, which had previously been blocked, because these have now been unblocked, but needs to do something to stop the leaves that come out of the wreck with all the trees going into those drains and blocking them. So there's still a piece of work for Swale to do there. I think technically they're called bioswales, beds of tarmac, that they were looking at, sleeping policemen with gates.
I believe that is still going on,
Yeah.
being reported to the Eastern Area Committee.
Yeah, so I think just if we could just make sure it says Fawsham Rec and that there's still ongoing work to be done there, that remains unresolved. I was going to ask about the on our one Western, and it talked here about funding. And made, what's it say? Funding was made available to support parish council and other community groups that have wanted to find local solutions to transport needs in their area. Specifically aware of that. Are you?
Officer.
So that's item 323 on page 11. This, because I think this is a great concern to all of us in Western, is that effectively we have no bus, well, certainly in my ward, we have no bus services. And actually the system that was put in place by KCC, this Kent Carrier, if you speak to anyone who's tried to use it, it's not as simple as just phone up and they'll come at any time that suits you. You've got to be programmed in, and actually it's actually a bit of a nonsense, and you have to pay. So those with bus passes are quite majorly out of pocket as a result. So what KCC have put in place is the quid pro quo definitely isn't a quid pro quo. So I just wanted to find out exactly if anyone else knew, because I'm none the wiser on what that funding was that was made available to parish council. Maybe parish councillors here maybe know of any of it. There's a lot of shaking of heads.
Councillor Kavanagh was first, thank you.
Sorry, going on from that, I've been pursuing David Brazier since before they were talking about the cuts. He's the cabinet member for KCC, who was ultimately responsible for cutting all our bus services. Certainly within Grove Park, we have a lot of very elderly, but previously fully independent pensioners, often in their 90s, that use the bus to go to the doctors, to have their warfarin checks, to do their shopping, to go to clubs. We would support them socially on the bus. That's been taken away. Some of them are managing to go once a week out and share a cab, but most of them by now, over the last 10 years, their mobility has deteriorated. So now they have frames and they're not easy to get into the cars, and the individuals aren't easy to get into the cars. I mean, there is meant to be new funding coming down from government. I understand from David Brazier when I messaged him a couple of months ago that they're setting up a working party to look at the tranches of money coming out. But each time I email him, there's no progress and they're not looking at new bus services. And one of his arguments was our bus, the number 9 at both ends, well, mainly the number 9 at both ends, were not the most made most money, and that's because most people are retired, and therefore for each journey, I believe you only get given 80p for a journey because they're not adequately is it KCC that does it? So it's not fair. I mean, sometimes we'd have a full bus. And we have no access to this Harrier, I don't think, Monique. I think we're just being fobbed off, and maybe they hope people are going to die. Because they will. You know, yesterday, someone in her 90s with a frame was trying to walk to town. A friend I met this morning gave her a lift because she said she could hopefully afford a cab one direction, but not both. This is appalling, and I mean, it's one of the priorities I want this council to pursue with KCC. I know I'm not the only one interested in this. Thank you.
Councillor Baldock.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that even when we first came as administration, we wanted to look at. I think that there is a need for us to take some sort of lead on this. How we could fund it, I don't know. But I think there is an aching need, and it's part of, you know, we keep talking about modal shift, we keep talking about tackling loneliness in the rural areas. This ticks so many of our boxes, and we need to be looking at if there's any way we can run services ourselves, or, you know, get support for volunteers who run minibuses. And we don't have to be big, two double deckers, but some communities do run community buses. I spoke to most of the parishes that I represent and got very little interest in actually clubbing together and purchasing a minibus. The parishes could step forward and help us on this, but I think there has to be a sort of lead partner in it. But yeah, it's essential something happens, something is done to address the gap in bus provision. But it needs somebody to actually, you know, have the guts to see it through. I'd hope that Swale could do it, but I've kept asking for feasibility reports and that, but we've never actually got any.
Councillor Randall.
Thank you very much. This actually reminds me of, I'm a fairly rare bus user, but one of the things that struck me about the routes of the buses in Swale is that they're all just sort of point to point. You know, if you're not near one of those points, it's pretty useless.
Yeah.
And I was comparing that to the Circle Line in London, where you only have to be on any one part of it, and you know you will end up at any other part of it. You don't have to keep chopping and changing. It did occur to me that what we could really do with is actually making the routes go through residential areas, drop into the centre of the town, drop past shopping centres, drop past anything else you like. That might end up with a longer route, but you know, I get the impression that most people who are using these are not so bothered about the time taken. They're bothered about actually being able to get there at all and having it near their residential areas. So yeah, you know, I think I sketched a route just on a map. I think I even had it going past through Bobbing, going past the then Dancing Dog Saloon as well. Just you know, just taking in a bit of everything, but also dropping through the middle. So that would not necessarily cost more money. It might just be a case of can things be rerouted to create a circle line. I bounced that through various political people over the years and haven't got very far. So as a saying in politics, you can get a lot done in politics if you don't mind who takes the credit. So if someone else wants to pick that up, claim it was their idea and make it work, then feel free.
Officer.
Thank you. As sort of noted, sort of everyone's comments, I think this has been a topic that we have explored in quite a lot of detail because quite rightly it does come up quite significantly, particularly with the rural areas here and also the eastern end of the Isle of Sheppey as well. So it is a Swale-wide issue. When the previous amount of work that was done, and quite rightly it is a KCC issue, and that's where the remit sits rather than at Swale Borough Council level. A lot of the services are run commercially, and that is why the routes are determined by the commercial operators. And there's a level of subsidy on some routes from a KCC perspective. What we have found is because of the funding being significantly reduced, and we all know various levels of councils have significant funding issues, that unfortunately I think in that last round of cuts that bus services have suffered. We have explored, and Councillor Richard Palmer will obviously be aware of this because it was a piece of work that he was very involved in, looked at community transport schemes. And again, it was very difficult for us to be able to get that to be viable with the level of volunteers and things like that. Even if we did have the initial funds to make it happen, there is quite a lot of organisation and various things. So I think it's an issue that we're very aware of. I think it's quite a tricky issue for us as a district council to resolve. But I think it is an issue that our residents quite rightly have an issue with. So I think it's probably trying to work out that level of lobbying and what other opportunities there might be. I think some of the examples that Councillor Kavanagh referenced was, you know, we know that Swale CVS run a volunteer car scheme. I know that there are costs to that. But again, for some of the elderly and hospital visits and some of those shopping trips, there may be alternative options that maybe residents aren't aware of. So there might be a piece of work that we could do around awareness raising to alleviate some of the issues. I wouldn't say it would resolve it. I think this might be something that we pass back into. I think it is a wider Swale issue about what the role of the council is, and particularly that effective lobbying. But we also know that Kent County Council don't have a lot of funds to be able to push into this. So I think it is a tricky issue, but I'm not sure it's necessarily. I'm not sure how much power as a district council we would have other than a lobbying stance. But we can certainly feed it into the next item on priorities.
Councillor Baldock.
Yeah, I think the role, and it really does need the parish councils, if anything's going to happen, it needs parish councils to be involved in it. But what I would see is the Swale role, if there is interest from parish councils, if there is a willingness to effectively contribute between themselves to doing something, Swale could be the legal authority, even if it doesn't contribute financially. It would be the one that would be able to probably negotiate a public loan, something, because what I have had from parish councils is, well, who would own it if there's 3 parish councils? Who would do the paperwork? Who would know what to do? And it was just it was too much of a concept for them to be able to take on. Whereas I think we are more experienced in that sort of thing and could guide the parish councils through the process of us being the ones who'd actually take out the loan but get the money paid back by the parish councils or something like that. I think what Councillor Randall was saying would work if it's down to Chalkwell or Weaver and Vale. I've often said to them that we don't need 5-day-a-week services. If we can have a service that ran 2 days a week in some of the villages, and then another 2 days a week in other villages, you'll be doubling the amount of areas that you serve. And part of it could be just simply feeder buses that take people from Iwade. Actually, Iwade's got a bus service, but from Lower Halstow and Upchurch onto the A2, from Hartlip onto the A2, where they can access a regular service. But it's places like in Milstead where there is no regular service. You need a bus that's going to take you. Well, if there wouldn't be any way you could get a bus, and it would need to go into the town. So I think we need to input from the parish councils. There's a handful here tonight, but if this is going to work, if this is going to get anywhere other than the constant KCC cuts, the parish councils are the only ones I think that can actually step in and organise, do something. But I think we have to take the lead as the coordinating council.
Councillor Sarah Stephen.
Yeah, I mean, the irony here, we're just talking about cycling and walking and getting cars off roads. The irony here is the bus service. But the trouble is, some of the rural services weren't used, and that awful saying, don't use it, you lose it, is there. There's a real irony to this because our village is affected. So maybe it's worth looking at models. I come from a new town in the 1960s, Crawley New Town. They built the town around a bus service. Sittingbourne and areas around it have got used to the car, and it's weaning people off the car. And if they'd used the services, I think we might have stood a chance. But it's terrible for the elderly. It really is. Our residents are suffering.
Councillor Bonny.
Cheers, thank you. It was a can of worms I opened, wasn't it? Are you pleased I spoke? But I mean, I do feel very grieved for those that are in their retirement years that are entitled to a bus pass and can't use it simply because there are no bus services unless you take a car to Sittingbourne, and then you may have some hope of getting a bus. So I think I feel very grieved for them, and now they're having to expend money on this so-called Kent Carrier service, which is just it's a poor service. But I think what agrees me even more is you go to somewhere like Cornwall, and they have a fantastic bus service there. Some of it's subsidised, some of it is obviously profitable commercial routes, and they've invested a lot of money, and they've actually applied and got a lot of, they got local, I think it's called local growth fund money. I think they got £9.5 million. So there are other counties that have managed to keep their bus services intact and actually improved upon them and put new bus stops in, new buses in. And here in Kent, where we've had this massive population explosion and housing growth, and we've absolutely lost out on our bus services. So whilst I hear that, yes, the district should be taking some of this on, this is wholly, in my view, the responsibility of the county council, because doing it piecemeal is never going to get us a good bus service, in my view. So I think we need to keep the pressure up on KCC.
Thank you. Any more questions on this agenda item? Thank you, Councillor Bonney, for raising that and generating some discussion, which will bode us well for the next item that we're about to do.
Yes.
Okay, so as previously mentioned, there is no longer funding available for area committees to allocate to support their priorities. However, each area can still agree what their main priorities should be, and these can be fed into and influence the corporate priorities and objectives in the new corporate plan. One of the first tasks for the new council is to create a corporate plan which will set out what the council wants to achieve over the next 4 years. This will help to make sure the council resources are allocated in an accountable and effective way. Area committees are being asked to have an input into the corporate plan at an early stage by outlining their own aspirations for their individual areas. These aspirations could be issues that are the responsibility of Swale Borough Council to achieve, or things that are the responsibility of external organisations which the council could try to influence. There could also be ambitions the area committees would like to work towards in the future. When considering what these aspirations should be, it is important to bear in mind the challenging budget position, which is likely to continue over the next few years, and the capacity of Swale Borough Council to deliver them on top of the previously agreed workloads. We're going to do something a little bit different this evening, an activity to start looking at priorities. But before we do that, I just wanted to ask the chair or Charlotte have anything you wanted to add about this?
Well, it was great discussion just a minute ago. Let's put some of that down on paper, some ideas, and really look into what priorities that Western Area Committee have and what's achievable. So it's
one of the things I was just going to say, obviously, a lot of you have had probably some really rich conversations when you've been out canvassing at the elections. And I think that's probably one of the things in the past we haven't really captured a lot of that intelligence and information. And we know that each area is very different. So I think it is about making sure that even though there might be some general issues, those really localised issues for you as well are captured. And that we hold that information, because I think it sometimes gets lost, and I know individuals know it, but as an organisation it'd be really useful to capture that as well.
So what we'd like to do is,
Oh, thank you. I don't know if this is the right agenda item for it, but as the corporate plan priorities are building the right homes in the right places and supporting quality jobs for all, is this an appropriate agenda item to talk about the local plan?
no. Yeah, we can take that to other agenda items, which is coming up. Okay, thank you.
okay, so we'd like everybody, including parish councils, parish councillors here this evening, members of the public, and also anybody online to take part, and we'd like you to split up into groups of about 4 or 5. So it's up to you whether you want to sort of mix or sort of sit in your groups roughly where you are now. I'm going to hand round some sheets which have got the 4 questions to hopefully help guide your discussion, and if you could have about 10 minutes or so to talk through what you think the priorities are, and if one of you from each group could feed back at the end we can collate all the priorities. And the people online, I will put up the list of questions as soon as I've handed these around, so you can all see them.
2 and 1. Do 2 and 1. 2 are the councillors of parish.
Oh, yeah.
If you do it area based, you know what.
Thank you. I was going to bring it up on this item anyway. And that's certainly what everyone's been talking about.
Thank you.
Oh, we need to mix the parish.
I saw one smile there.
It gets confusing when you're trying to find it's but I thought that was it. Right, we got the one that we get that, yeah, just didn't they go straight up and all the way back. But the two but they were, yeah. So it's actually slightly adaptation. It's just the appendix.
Yes, good idea.
And the next one, seriously. And I. Yeah. Right, so right, so what issues that residents in Borough Council or Bus Council ask? Especially around
We're going to give you till about 8:10, but we may extend it if you're that enthusiastic. Okay.
Yeah, that's the other option. Yeah.
She's worried. She knows.
But they are. Next door.
I think so.
Yeah. What else are we responsible for?
But it is something that affects them while we're in charge. Yeah. Yeah, so, policies.
Yes.
The trespass.
Depends where they sit.
I
Yeah, grounds maintenance, landscaping.
More like holidays.
Yes, bits of land, yeah, exactly, just a bit of land.
Frames, window frames.
Yeah.
So our understanding of that pattern in the business period.
Orange.
I've got to the end of that.
What issues affect residents in your ward? KCC.
Yeah.
It's been like.
So my twice my face. My tweets come from your sites.
Yeah.
How many times have you done it?
Yes.
I've seen it saying to me car park quite a lot. I think it's yeah. It's just per month that you pay, wasn't it? Just can't remember. Yeah, right,
Yes.
yeah. Yeah. Right. And then this is so you might go on a business and or have one car. Yeah. It takes time for the rest of it. Yeah. Well, winning the lottery. So improve our schools. Yeah. Changes, yeah, you are. I think I've done very similar to from my house. Yeah. And I don't know how they are out. Anything no, speeding. So that's the villages that affects us is speeding.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, eventually, yes,
Problem is,
So they normally do what that other car is, because that's plus and CC. Really should be able to get 20. Okay. What the top, like what the top three should like what you to bring forward? I mean, like, buses, NHS.
yeah.
Right, and insurance companies. And wildlife. Yeah. Where it is as to what can be done. Sometimes it's police, sometimes it's swale. So, and there's a lot of background now. It's got in Robinson, it's a real. Yeah. I think we should.
We have about a couple of minutes left now, 2 minutes just to wrap up. So get your questions on papers, please.
If you want longer. We can.
Yeah.
Oh, right, so, yeah, wrong area.
Yeah, no, no. So that's all part of
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Sorry, right.
That's purely accessing your nature.
this isn't a smile.
It's a different system. It's not saying
It's based on. Over happy, one of these houses, and there's no longer a trouble.
Okay, everybody, your time is now up. If you've got anything on paper, would one person from that group like to read them out? But we'll get to everybody on board first. Yeah, I'm good. I'm glad someone's ready.
sunglasses out.
I'm just thinking, we need that on a bit higher
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. No,
Oh, poor old Janet can
No, hang on.
I said, you and Ron
Uh,
Hill, right, Chairman.
the file group, Richard, come
Come
on.
on, Richard, come on. Got
Yes,
items to go
yeah.
to.
Have you got someone to read out your list? Who's going to go first? Who wants to go first? Oh, good. Well done. Councillor Cavanagh, please. Yes.
Right, number one, what issues affect residents in your ward that fall within the responsibility of Swale Borough Council? 1, transferring land assets to parish councils. 2, promote rural tourism. 3, fly tipping. Or dealing with it. I don't suggest you fly tip anymore. Number 2, what issues affect residents in your ward that fall within the responsibility of an external partner? Bus services and isolation and loneliness. Schools need good schools and in local areas, stop all this busing miles. 3, what changes would you like to see that could improve the life of residents in the future? Better air quality environment, protect open spaces, training and jobs, rural apprenticeships. Number 4, what are the top 3 issues you'd like area committee to take forward in the coming year? Buses, school placements, protection of countryside and wildlife. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Bonny.
Yes, thank you. Right, so question 1, we put litter, fly tipping, refuse, so it's a collection of bins, antisocial behaviour, parking at schools and idling, planning, grounds maintenance and landscaping, about our properties, ownership of our land, and about protection of conservation areas. Number 2, we picked buses, speeding, NHS, doctors and hospitals in particular, maintenance companies on new estates, roads, in particular potholes and pavements, southern water leaks and the constant issue with roads, and high-speed Wi-Fi. And then item 3, what would you like to that could improve the life of residents in the future? All of the above. Number 4, top 3, well, we've got top 4. So it's buses, school parking and idling, and highways, roads and pavements, and the NHS. Because we can't count.
Thank you. Anyone? Yeah. Louisa?
Yeah.
Vivian, sorry. Yes, I know.
So memorable, yeah, number 1, we've got bin men, rubbish dropping, parking problems, fly tipping, design and input on housing, particular for small developers, social and council housing and air quality. And number 2, for external partners, we had rat running, school places, youth services, local bus provision, lack of tips, home to school transport, GPs, NHS and quad bikes, police.
Oh, yeah.
Number 3, we just had one overall one, which was putting the infrastructure in place early before any building, so the infrastructure's first. And number 4, 1, representation to the local plan team for emphasising infrastructure in first. 2, rubbish, bin men dropping things and fly tipping. And number 3, GPs lobbying for better GP services.
Thank you very much. There's only 3 groups. It's 4, is it? No. Come on. You stay here, I still can't. Yeah.
Chairman, whilst we're collecting the papers, can I just ask that we're talking about GP and healthcare provision, is that any members that are present here tonight, I'm going to post something on Facebook later, because I'm aware the ICB is doing a consultation on community health provision in Sittingbourne in particular. I think it's really important that people respond to this consultation. So I will share it on social media, and I'll be grateful if anyone here can also share it, but most importantly, take part in it, because it's something I've campaigned for a long time on, and I think it's one of the hot topics, as everyone's just discussed, is about local healthcare provision. It's probably the #1 item in my post bag from residents of gripes and complaints. And I think this consultation has been poorly advertised. It's not exactly very well worded either, because I think I needed clarification on what they were actually asking. But do your best, and if you don't understand it, then please write that in the comments and say that you don't really understand what they're asking. So I think we need, as a community, to feed back into that.
Thank you, Councillor Bonny. And I did admit to ask if there are any online entries for this. Okay, thanks very much. Yes.
So everything, I shall collate everything that you've suggested this evening, and then that will go forward for the preparation of the corporate plan. If anybody has any thoughts when you leave here today, please email me and I can add them to the list as well. But I think that concludes that item, if you're happy with that, Chair.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move on to agenda item number 9, which is matters arising. And you'll see on page 29 where we're going to start. So I'll just run through what we've got here. Okay, number 1, youth provision in villages. There is a report on the appendix 1, final report for the project from Brogdale CIC. So on that, are you there yet? Page 29. Right.
Oh, yeah.
Councillor Baldock.
So, we funded this. We are now not in a position for any more funding. Where this has been successful, needs being particularly noticeable. How do we take this forward? How do we try and ensure that the areas where it's been successful keep getting something? Our Brogdale or Vibe doing something to attract external funding so that these services can continue, because the worst thing to do is to provide something and then take it away. So there needs to be some organic growth out of this.
I think I need to follow up with Brogdale CIC. Obviously, we know that they are also the provider for the KCC youth services. We also know that there is very limited funding for that and what that might look like going forward. I can certainly take away from this meeting to follow up with Brogdale and look at what their plans are. I know actively that they are always looking for funding opportunities and what they can go for, but we do need that sort of follow on, because I completely agree with you. Once you take something away from young people, they feel a greater loss than if you didn't provide it in the first place.
Okay, just come back to it. This is the sort of evidence that should be fed into planning for 106 money. This is the sort of thing that we, given it to Newhouse, that may not even exist anymore. This is the sort of thing that we need to be, it's a source of funding, but we need these people to be able to bid for it and work on it. So,
Councillor Richard Palmer.
No, I was going to say the same, that we need to put this in front of planning for the section 106 money to actually go to the local villages and to the areas where the housing is, whereas quite often it finishes up some distance away and doesn't represent what's needed locally. So we need to take that forward, hopefully, and make the planning people know.
I think, as all members are aware, that obviously within the section 106, a lot of it has to be sort of more a capital contribution, which is why the youth provision that goes to Newhouse is actually more for the building and the revenue services. And I think particularly having worked quite closely with Brogdale and other youth providers, it is the ongoing revenue funding that they typically need, because they need qualified youth workers to make that meaningful engagement. I think if there is any opportunity with section 106 money, we also, through the KCC communities consultation, had queried obviously the section 106 funds that were already held for community hubs and youth provision, particularly because they'd made reference around permanently closing Newhouse. So we have put a query in with that consultation as well about what existing funds are being utilised for as part of that.
Yeah, Councillor Nicola Bunting, please. Butling. Do you wish to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. In the fifth paragraph of Vibe's report, it states that they attended Borden, and our parish clerk has told us that the only communication she had from them was in December, and from an Adam McKinley, and then he was going to send some advertising to promote what they were trying to do in Borden, but she heard no more. So Borden Village hasn't actually been targeted.
Thank you.
And could I also say as well that on the Wisings Lane development, there is Section 106 money to go to Newhouse, which agrees with what Councillor Baldock was saying.
Thank you. Councillor Bonny.
Yeah, it says here, it's the same point that Nicholas just made, actually, on paragraph 3. They came to Robinsham, the park near the hall. Well, it's the village green, and actually, if they parked near the village hall, they would have had to get through the gate. So I'm not aware that they've asked for any access. And at Milstead, they said they went up to Milstead. And we've got the village Facebook pages, and I don't recall anything ever being advertised on there. So I'm wondering how they actually advertise this. I don't recall ever seeing any advertising of them actually appearing at those two locations.
I'm happy to follow up those queries. I think young people don't really use Facebook most, so that might be the answer. I know obviously parents do.
Yeah.
So that they might have communicated differently, but we can certainly ask those questions.
Councillor Baldock.
Again, this is something that, I mean, we got all this, but I think it was like £7,000. Now, okay, it's worked in some areas, it's maybe not works well in others, but it might be something to do with communication. But again, this is something that parish councils, if they wanted to see this, could contribute to and get, there's 9, 10, 11 parishes that are covered by this area committee. If each of them wanted to put in a range between £500 and £800 each a year, that would continue to provide services. Maybe it's something we should suggest to the Swale Area Committee of Calc, Richard, and try and take it on, because this does seem to have worked in some places. Some it doesn't, but where it has, that's another means of perpetuating it.
Thank you. Okay, we move on to the next item, which is next one is Bredburn Hartlett Conservation Area Reviews. If you look at the progress on actions, it states here that the Conservation and Design team advised that draft documents for both the conservation area appraisals have been received. Conservation officer is liaising with the consultant regarding the final document. Estimated date for the start of the public consultation is the 12th of June 2023, so that's not Monday. Baldock.
Really disappointed that, given it was this committee that commissioned this, it wasn't put forward on this agenda so that we could see it. I think that's even if it was in a draft situation, we won't be meeting again until the consultation is finished. I just think that's really quite sad that it couldn't have been agendaed for us.
Thank you. No more comments on that one. We'll move on to the next item, which is refurbishment of King George V toilet refurbishment. And that project is completed. No further action, and what a lovely toilet it is. I have used it.
Whoa.
For proper reasons. Okay, the next one is flooding in rural areas. So you see Appendix 2, the letter sent by the Environment Committee Chair to the central government, and Appendix 3 is the response received. So you can do heart's content. Yes, I expected that question. Councillor Bonnet.
Yeah, so particularly I can think in Rovisham, we've got natural springs, and as gravity defines, it goes down a hill. It seems to be it's so frustrating. What ends up happening is we end up with flooding in Ashford Drive because the drain further up on School Lane blocks, and yet KCC highways seem unable to do anything about the flooding that runs down the hill, funneling all the water into the drain, which is their drain, and they don't regularly clean it. And their flood department denies that it's their responsibility. There is a natural spring, and we've got them all across the rural areas, and we don't fall within a drainage, like we're not within the Lower Medway drainage area. There needs to be an ounce of common sense between KCC Flood, who are the responsible authority, and highways to come up with a solution and do something about it, as well as working with landowners to make sure that fields aren't ploughed in such a way that it funnels the water onto the roads of the fields. So I would just say that it's a load of gobbledygook in a letter, and it doesn't achieve what we want it to do. Good point.
Yeah, didn't expect anything different. That's all.
No more comments on that item. Then we move on to the next one, which is the donation food banks that provide a service to residents in the Western area. So, the Sittingbourne Food Bank have provided 170 food parcels across the Western area wards, which translates into feeding 506 people. Since this funding cleared in their account, 7th of November 2022. So that was, in total, they have spent £3,641.40 of the allocated 5,000, and expected to have spent all of it in the next few months. An update has not been received from the Bus Shelter Food Bank as yet, so all the others come back, so we're chasing that one. On that one, no? Okay. The next one, item 6, is proposal to support residents having difficulties purchasing alternative heating products.
It's an alternative heating
project.
Matches.
Things like oil,
Gas bottles, off grid.
The Fuel and Water Home Advisor has confirmed that 2,235 of the funding allocated has been spent on energy saving products to households across the Western area. The households supported have received energy saving products or energy advice. Also eligible households were referred to the Food and HSF Support, which is the Housing Support Fund. Questions on that one? Yes, Janet.
yes, as you'll see, not all the funding has been spent as yet. About half of it has. And the Fuel and Energy Advisor has asked, where possible, can parish councils, ward members continue to promote this? We've still got leaflets. I've left some of them at the front there. If you could take some with you. We have a PDF version. So if maybe parish councils could maybe display these in notice boards. Some people have suggested perhaps giving them to schools so that they could be handed out to anybody they think may need them at schools. You know, as much pushing this as possible would be really great.
Councillor Kavanagh.
Thank you. Could you send me the PDF of the leaflet and I can put it on our Facebook group? Thank you, Janet.
Thank you. Okay, the next one is the Rose Hill and Meads Woodland Management and Works Plan. And the update is that the bank details for the Meads and Woodland Friends Group have been received, so the funds have been transferred. Councillor Baldock.
I don't know if Anne wants to update on herself shortly, lately. But I want to just query on the annual appointments. An appointment came through for council to appoint somebody on the Meads Woodland Management Group, Meads Woodland Friends Group. There was no requirement for that when this was set up. But if anybody should be appointing to that body, it should be the Western Area Committee, not full council. We'd want it to be somebody ideally from the ward, certainly somebody from the Western Area Committee. If a ward member should never be in a position not to want to do it. So I think I don't see why it's being treated like this anyway. But I know that James is happy with it, having a council nomination, but I do think it should come from this area committee. The Rose Hill one was set up as a friends group, and at the time there was no requirement for any official position. It's been going a year. The annual general meeting is on Monday. I would hope that we won't be impacted by these odd arrangements surrounding the Meads Woodland group.
So just to sort of come in on that, I think my understanding is that organisations request to have an outside body appointment rather than it being a condition from us, and obviously it generally goes through the full council process. I think where they are localised areas, it absolutely makes sense that it's relevant to that, and you know, but it is a full council decision. I'd hope they'd make a sensible one.
So why is it a full council decision?
The outside body appointments has always been part of the full council. I mean, I can certainly take that up with the monitoring officer to see why that's part of the constitution, but that has always been sort of custom and practice that since I've been here.
We had different committees made appointments last year.
I think we have had a few separate committees. I think there was one that went through housing and health, which was a health related appointment. Rather than a geographical appointment. I can certainly take that up with the monitoring officer and feedback.
Yeah, other committees do that. I mean, Swale Leisure is done Communities Committee.
Thank you. Councillor Kavanagh.
Thank you. Just to add information, as it says here, that you were looking for a councillor. Mike was presumably one of the founders of Rose Hill Woods Group, and I have joined the group because I use the woods, not because I'm a councillor. So there are actually 2 ward councillors on Rose Hill Wood, as well as some very other decent people too.
I'm sure there are. Thank you. Okay. The next item on this list is impact of improvements works at Stockley Roundabout. And there has been responses from the letter written to the chair of KCC and Highways England and that is at Appendix 4. And it's worth a read, I suppose. Any questions on that one? Okay, well, the next item, walking and cycling project, we've covered that one, so, and that's all gone very well. And the last one on here is the heritage issues. The current position of the 4 conservation areas are set out below. So the adopted versions of the conservation area appraisal document is now published on the Swale Borough website, along with a link to the latest map of the conservation area. All formalities regarding notifications to local residents, the parish council, local newspaper and London Gazette are complete. Councillor Baldock.
And really excitingly, local lists are going to be published. They're going to be publicised next week. So we're encouraging people and local groups and parish councils to nominate stuff in their area that they think is of heritage value, that we can put it on a local list. And we need to get that out.
It was planned that once these were all done, that we'd have printed versions for people to have. I remember Mike calling them tabletop or top books, but nothing's happened on that. Now I know we've lost our conservation area person, but I see I'm going to ask Jo in printing to see if she can give us a quote for printing up some of the documents, because people want to buy them. So I'm sure she can come up with a price.
Yes,
I'll ask her and we'll let people know.
Yeah, they've always been available. People can have them printed up. I just think we should be making a bit more effort and letting people know that they can get them printed up.
Okay, I'll have a chat with them.
Councillor.
Thank you. Yeah, just out of curiosity, if they're on this local list, does that give them like an extra legal protection at all if someone can knock them down or something?
It would have to be taken into consideration.
Good planning speak.
Yeah. A little bit there.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to the next agenda item, which is the public forum. The purpose of this agenda item is to enable members of the public to direct questions to the chair or suggested agenda items for future meetings. Any suggestions from members of the public?
No.
Members? No, not from me.
Only those items that we listed earlier in our top three. All of those need to be brought up.
This will be considered. Okay. Item 11, sorry.
So I'm just observing that the public forum time is right sort of near the end of the meeting, whereas in parish councils we tend to have it at the start. So I guess you want to make sure that the public stay the distance. Is that right?
Yeah. Listen to our wisdom.
Too clever for your own good. I don't know. Well done. Okay, agenda item 11, local issues to be raised. It's an opportunity to ask members if there's anything they would like to raise on behalf of the local residents stroke communities. Councillor Sarah Stephen.
I get fed up with my voice because I've got 3 items I want to raise, but today Janet kindly circulated a document round to members of the committee, and it was about the East Kent Baby Memorial Gardens charity, and with a suggestion that we have a board for Sittingbourne, and the suggested area is King George's playing fields. The charity have gone to look at the playing fields and making some suggestions of where they're lockable, so it's a safe park to put this type of thing. really tasteful. If you saw the pictures attached, you can see what they do. Somewhere quiet for the parents to go. The sort of bricks that you put on with the names, they're a one-off charge for the families for £40. But providing the bench, they get somewhere to sit, they can pin flowers to their babies. And this is for miscarriages as well, not just stillbirths or babies that died early. So it's close to my heart because I used to be the bereavement midwife and I ran an early pregnancy unit, so I know how heartbreaking miscarriage is. Faversham are nearly there. They've nearly got theirs. I think that's gone through planning and they're getting one. The Beachfields at Sheppey's been suggested for one there. I think it's something that Swale needs, really does, especially post-pandemic, because women weren't getting counselling, weren't getting help, and I know they weren't. So it is something I think that the public would see that we're doing. It's not going to cost the council anything. The charity itself puts this in. All we've got to do as a group, and that's what I want to bring to the group, is to work out how we go about it, and what's the system for us. And I'd like it to be proposed from Western Area Committee, because I think it's such a lovely thing that there will be one somewhere in the town where people can go and be quiet and remember their babies. So any comments, please?
Councillor Baldock, please.
Very briefly, something Sarah did just mention planning. And if this needs planning permission, I'd rather not predetermine everybody. So does it need planning?
I'm not aware of, I've not been involved in that. I think it probably would depend on the location and, you know, the specification of it. So we can certainly look into that.
Yeah, and it's on our land, so it's.
Yeah, so I think if there's anything on our land, we would need to give obviously authorisation for that. That's normally done sort of either through a licence agreement or something. So that would be more of a property matter. I think without obviously, I only sort of read it earlier today, to be able to speak to the relevant officers regarding that, so quite happy to take away and look at the logistics, and if they're already doing it in Faversham, is that whether that's a town council land or, you know, not SVC land, just to understand that and sort of the practicalities of it, and maybe we could come back to well, might be a bit far in between committees, but report back through the chair, you know, the information that we've got of that and what requirements and regulations are required for that.
Fabulous, Charlotte, that really would just, I think it's something that really, it's time that we had something like this in town. Thank you.
Councillor Bonnet.
Thank you. Yes, so I've actually been approached twice now about this. Once for place in Sheppey, and I think they were looking at the person who spoke to me thought a suitable place would be next to Master's House, that adjacent piece of land. So just out there for Sheppey, if they're looking at it as one of the other alternatives. But I know a Robinsham resident approached me and saying that there wasn't anywhere in Swale. And I do think that actually the bit where the raised beds are, probably there's some nice landscaping, and it kind of, I suppose, would fit with that. If I was being critical of what I saw from the design, I didn't particularly like that, but I think that's something that can be worked on, and charity can come up with something that's suitable that we would have, you know, agreed to. But yes, the principle, I'm happy with the principle of the idea.
You make it continue?
We can agree to principle, just not be specific. So if we want to do that, we can.
Yeah, I just wanted to get the ball rolling, and I suppose the old saying, strike while the iron's hot, because I think, you know, let's act on it, because we've got somebody actually offering to do it for us. So. Yeah.
So can we ask for a proposer and a seconder, and then we can. And yeah, all those in favour?
Parish councillors can vote too.
Anyone against? Any abstentions?
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Right, now these two are more in keeping with probably trying to see if we can get these issues looked at by JTB, and it's about some points that we'd already mentioned. About a month ago, Woodstock Road, leading up to the Science Park, there was a car speeding up at Tunstall School's leaving time, wrecked 3 cars, turned over, and almost hit a group of children. It's getting worse and worse and worse leading out to the Science Park. The speed is ridiculous. You can clock people doing 50, 60, sometimes 70, especially in the evenings. What myself and Chair have discussed, because it is our ward, is that there's nowhere for anyone to cross, especially if you're living in Ruinsbarn Road, if you've got children at Tunstall School. There's no one for anyone to cross. So we were thinking maybe if we could start the ball rolling for having a crossing, which would have to slow people down. We need to sort of look at whether we can have it up near the crossroads, the Cromes Road crossroads, but safe in a safe place. Because you take your life into your own hands actually crossing there as an adult, let alone having children with you. That would reduce speed, we think. It's not a road, it's a wide, long road, so speed calming is not really. So either a 20 limit with it, or having a sign, flashing sign sometimes, but I'm not sure how many people really pay attention to those. So it's just a proposal, just again, to get the ball rolling, and do you think it's worth us trying to put it through JTB and getting something done?
Councillor Baldock.
Is this an unparished area?
No, it's Tunstall.
Tunstall.
And then the only way you'll get anything done is through the parish
You'd have to do a
council
highway
improvement
but
plan.
we've
Yeah.
had no request for it elsewhere.
But KCC won't entertain it without the parish involvement. I've tried elsewhere.
Okay, Councillor Bonnet.
Can the area committee though request something like that? I mean, it's a bit strange actually. Somebody must have had some intuition, because it must have been just before that accident. So it must have been about 5 weeks ago. I was contacted by a Woodstock resident who was saying it's really dangerous walking to school and about the speeding traffic. So, and that was just before that accident. So there's clearly an issue amongst the local residents there. And I know trying to get out of the junction in the morning, it's really busy and it backs up down there. But it's quite a terrifying accident to have happened recently. And I don't know, I think members can request an item put on JTB.
It would be very bad form to put something like this on without first consulting with the county member. I mean, I don't know if we invite county members to these. He should, it would have been good if he was here, but you really should go to the county member first and see if he's willing to help. And if you get nowhere with the county member, then yeah, as an area committee, we could try and put something. But people always talk about JTB, but it achieves nothing. If JTB is a talking shop where you just say yay or nay to yellow lines after they've already been out of consultation. It could achieve a lot, but the way it's set up, it doesn't. So I would really have a word with Rich Lehman.
John Wright.
It's John
Oh,
Wright.
dear.
Actually, I will raise it with them. And Woodstock Road is Sittingbourne, not Tunstall. And it's much wider there in terms of crossings and things. Actually, John will be right. I'll have a chat with him.
But in fact, it's not an unparish. So that's in a parish, but it's in Sittingbourne South.
Woodstock Road is not Tunstall. Ruinsbarn Road is Tunstall, but
Yeah.
Woodstock Road is Sittingbourne.
It starts at Cromers and Tunstall Road, but Woodstock Road is not parish.
And it's quite wide there, so
It
it would
is.
take across.
Yeah, it would take a crossing. But also the other end of Woodstock Road where the park is, there's no crossing there. That desperately needs something where they can cross to get into the park. And that King George's Park is really well used, and there's dog walkers and they wait to cross the road near the park. So you're talking both ends of the road need slowing down.
Oh, that's totally different if it's an unparished area. In that case, then yes, you would still need to talk to the KCC member, but I think Sittingbourne Area Committee has put things on JTB before. So we can do it if it's unparished. Yeah, that's totally different.
Thank you, thanks for clarifying that, that's my mistake. Right, third one is basically the residents of Eden Village are experiencing horrendous time with parking at school times and all day. And what is actually happening is they are being abused by school students themselves. They're parking on a very dangerous junction at Bluebell. It's a roundabout going into Bluebell Drive and Violet Drive. I when I was canvassing, I got a 40-minute of frustration, and she's been sworn at. The student was so-called disciplined, but came back with all her friends the next day and verbally abused them again. So there's incidents like this over and over again. And the way that what's actually happening is the students have got a car park, but they're not parking there because that car park gets locked up during the day. So if they want to go out in their cars and get out of school, they're parking on the estate. And it's on blind corners, it's stopping people being able to see around the corner to come out. And I spoke to my table lady today, and she'd had an accident around there because she couldn't see. So they're very frustrated, and because what's then happening is it's causing some antisocial behaviour as well, because these kids are congregating now at that area. They say in the summer all they can smell is cannabis, and they're obviously taking some drugs. So it's two issues: it's parking and it's antisocial behaviour, which came up in our list. So again, where do we start? I just wanted to make it public. So where to go from here?
Before you do, I mean, we're talking about Brenchley Road from the roundabout at Bluebell Drive down towards the Forster Manor School. Now, they're parking on that road there, and if you're coming around the roundabout, you cannot see what's coming the other way if you've got parked cars on the left-hand side. Now, I had a phone call this afternoon from a very distraught lady saying that she's frightened to take the car out because she doesn't know what's coming the other way. And it's purely because they're parking their cars from the roundabout up towards the school in Brenchley Road. So it narrows it right down, and there's speed bumps there as well. So it doesn't help. But,
yeah, I mean, I think there's some very sort of initial steps that can be taken, and I think making the assumption that they will probably be in their last year of school and finishing soon and probably breaking up with exams very soon, that the problem may self-resolve going forward. But I think what might be useful is that maybe the chair of the committee writes to the school to say that it's been a problem this academic year, and can they actually make sure that they're quite firm from the beginning of the new term and set the rules around parking in the allocated car park, and asking the school to basically take the issue on. But as I say, we're in that period of time where there's probably a few weeks left, and whether they can make an impact in that time might be quite challenging.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an ongoing issue because each year is going to be still there, and they're all getting cars now. I don't know, I never got a car when I was at school. So I think the residents have spoken to the school, the police have been involved. There's all sorts of people, agencies that have actually been involved, but the schools still don't act on it again every time it gets reported. So I suppose it's off their property, and so it's horrible for the residents.
Councillor Ann.
Thank you. Yeah, I think Charlotte's more or less said what I was going to say, that if the school has this car park, but it's then making it unsuitable by arbitrarily locking it during the day, could we persuade them to make it available to students such that this problem just goes away without us having to spend lots of money? Thank you.
Councillor Callanan.
Thank you. I can only add that Westland Secondary School had a problem with kids at the co-op kids just hanging around on the street corner, and the senior managers every morning, they had a rota and they would walk the streets. I said it wasn't the best use of their time, but that's what they chose to do. I don't understand why Falston can't do the same.
Mr. Bonnet.
So a couple of things. So first one about the parking is I assume those roads are unadopted in Eden Park. And this is a perpetual problem I think we face, and this is one which I try very to convey to KCC when they say they're not adopting the roads, is this then causes a problem about parking enforcement, because actually it's the estate who should be taking on parking enforcement. So if you can go back to the estate management company and tell them, because they all pay their service charge, and if they're not having parking enforcement, which is their responsibility, they should be doing that. The second thing is, I think we all hate the estate management companies because I think a lot of the residents feel ripped off, that they're not getting the service that they think they should be getting. But that's aside from this. So, and is recording the registration numbers so that the police, but also the council. So if there's anything we can do around what is our responsibility for our parking wardens, and we could send them out periodically to do that. I know we do it around schools sometimes, about parking, yeah, on zigzags and things like that. So that's the parking issue. But around the antisocial one, and I know Charlotte's aware because I've reported it a few times, is the kids are coming out there on quads, and we know they're coming from Eden Park. Robinson's recorded this problem. I've put them going up Bottles Lane, they come up Stockers Hill, they're racing around the fields, they're using the fields like a racetrack. GHD have been very explicit. They have given no permission for people to be on quad bikes tearing through the fields. So this, I know the police are understaffed and under-resourced at the moment, but it is creating a huge amount of misery, not just for Eden Village residents, but for Robinsham residents in particular, and going up to Milstead, because it's the same faces every time. One of them wasn't wearing a crash helmet the other day. There was no registration plate. It's just, it's ridiculous. It's the same culprits who need to be dealt with.
Well, on this occasion, it's some girls as well. So there is a group of girls that are causing a lot of problems.
Yeah. Are there any more issues to be raised? Okay. So moving on to agenda item number 12, matters referred to the area committee by service committees. I'm not. No, nothing, no. Right, that's good. And agenda item 13, matters to be referred to service committee chairs for consideration. And there is also nothing on that one. So, okay, that leaves us as the last agenda item. We just need to say that the next area committee meeting will take place on the 31st of August. At Bradford Village Hall. And you may, before we just finish.
It's about the venues for Western Area Committee meetings. I do struggle to find venues that have Wi-Fi. I just wondered what the preference was of the committee. If I cannot find anywhere with Wi-Fi, would you prefer to have a meeting here where the meeting can be hybrid, or would you prefer it to be in a community hall but with no hybrid? If I've got to make a choice.
I personally prefer Village Hall without.
Others' views?
I think it's handy to be able to listen in. So I prefer it to be somewhere where there is Wi-Fi, so that people can listen in, those who can't get there.
So is that a general consensus that we want Wi-Fi?
No, it was 50-50.
Was it?
Doesn't
Where?
cost us to
Oh,
use
it's
the
two
village hall.
comments.
It does, yes.
Yeah.
It's not that I pay money in for the village hall, we've got this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
It does bring up.
You may go to the loo if you wish. I've not swimming there. So
Right, we have to pay for that poor bloke downstairs who has to stay here until we've shut up. Secondly, it's supporting the rural economy, which we are supposed to be trying to do. Thirdly, the whole point of area committees is they meet in the areas that they represent. I mean, the fact that we have to pay for 40 quid for a village hall shouldn't overcome the fact that we're more accessible to our public. But
Councillor Cameron.
Back to the buses, I'm afraid, because there are no buses and certainly no buses in the evening. If someone is internet friendly, they can actually access the meeting from a village. So I'll be preferring the Wi-Fi.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Steve.
Thank you.
It's Wi-Fi for me.
Oh, 3.
Okay, members and
You should
general
not
public.
make yourself bound
This-
to the internet.
That's the end of the meeting. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no.